Welcome back, Mike. We're so excited to have you in the Valor Advisors studio. Um, in our last episode, we talked all about coaching,
hmm
how somebody would know they need a coach, how they would know they're ready to switch to the next coach, and where coaching can get them as a leader, as an executive. Now, I want to talk back at that starting point. Let's say that somebody is becoming a manager for the first time. They've never had to have anybody report directly to them before. And they have a team and they have no idea where to start. Let's talk about how we could help that manager be trained into a coach, into somebody that could build their team up and get people to trust them really fast.
Wow, that's a great question, and I am delighted to be back. Episode one was fun. I enjoyed our last conversation, and I'm glad we get a chance to chat again. And I love the question. I'm gonna sort of dial it back just a little bit, and really acknowledge what I think a lot of people probably know, but just say out loud and make sure we're clear on the fact that there is a difference between managing and leading, and there is a difference between managing and coaching. And those are associated roles, but they are different. And not every manager is a leader, not every leader is a manager, and certainly not every manager is a coach. And I love working with first-time managers. And this goes back, way back into my past. When I was a young Marine officer, we were all brand new leaders, training to be leaders. And we spent a lot of time learning the fundamentals of leadership, and what it meant to be a leader, and why somebody would follow someone else, why someone would do what someone else has suggested that they do. And I took a lot of that experience, a lot of that knowledge, and when I ran a nonprofit outdoor adventure camp for at-risk adolescents. It was really a place to serve kids who were in the juvenile justice system and going in the wrong direction. But we served them by pairing them up with extraordinary young people. So high school students to work with our junior high students, or college students to work with our high school age students. So somebody was just a little bit older than the kids that we were serving. And they were the mentors, and they were really the magic behind the program. And we spent a lot of time teaching them leadership. And again, they're extraordinary kids, but they're high school or college age. Many of them are just had in their first job or not yet working, and they certainly haven't had a chance to be managers, to understand what it means to be in charge. And we spend a lot of time teaching them, young people, on how to be leaders. And it served me well throughout my 25 years in technology and now my 3 years at Valor Advisors, just helping people understand how to find their voice as leaders. Now, I said all of that sort of come all the way around the barn the long way to come back to the question that you asked, which is to talk about coaching. We talked about coaching in the last episode, but at its core, I mentioned that coaching is about asking good questions. But what you're specifically asking questions around is, can you correctly identify, accurately identify where you are right now? Can you establish point A? And then can we get you to name and own reasonable goals, short-term goals, intermediate goals, long-term, 3, 5 year vision kind of goals, life goals, and those become the point B, excuse me. And then, the last part of it is, what is the path that gets you from point A to point B? And you can't do a path if you don't have a point A. You can't do a path if you don't have a point B. But you don't get from point A to point B without a path. So there's three really essential elements. And if you can get somebody to tell you where they are, where they think their strengths and weaknesses are, where they are today and what they want to get better at, you get them to tell you what it is what they're moving toward and what's important to them, and then get them to take ownership of the path that you help them develop. you have become a coach. And that's very different than being a manager. A manager is supposed to sort of tell people what to do. Brylan, go, take the order on table 9, or it's your turn to go clean out the trash cans or check the chlorine in the pool or whatever your manager tells you to do in your early jobs as a young person. That person's being a manager. They're not necessarily being a leader. They're not inspiring you. They're not motivating you, but they're also not coaching you. And it's really powerful when you can help people understand the difference between those three things and when to use them and how to use them, how to reach into their tool bag and be able to do the things that allow them to be a coach here or a manager there or a leader there.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like a lot of managers get to a manager position based on past performance. Do you think there's a flaw in that system? And if so, what can a leader, a current leader, look for in their existing team to help them know who would be best promoted?
Yeah, it is an interesting phenomenon. We often take people who are good at doing something and assume that means they'll be good at telling others how to do things. And those are different skills. So we will see somebody who's the top sales guy, but not a great sales manager, or really good at, stocking shelves. And you say, all right, I'm going to make you in charge of the whole warehouse. And now they're doing budgets and time sheets, schedules. And people think like, well, why is he not so good at his job? Well, because the things that made him the greatest at stocking shelves might not have made him the thing that was greatest at running a whole warehouse. So yeah, people make that mistake a lot. It's not a critical mistake, especially if we acknowledge that there is a change in role. And so people should be trained for the job that they're in, and understanding what are those skills that are required for this new job, and how do we get them those skills. Is usually where the mistake is made. The mistake isn't in promoting someone for great performance. The mistake is assuming that because they were good at their last job, they don't need any training to be good at the next job.
Yeah, that's something that I think a lot of companies could benefit from. I think sometimes the pattern is, oh, you've done a good job in this role, you will do a good job if I trust you with more. And I think that it is a disservice to who you're promoting and a disservice to your company and that person's direct reports, because they have no idea, or potentially no idea, how to deal with people, how to take on administrative tasks, and how to lead their team, how to talk to people, sometimes how to coach. So I think, and I think you would agree, that if you're going to promote someone, investing time and money into coaching that person to be a good leader is vital to the success of their team. So we've all had managers who maybe shouldn't be managers. Sometimes we have managers that are good, but those instances are rarer to hear about. So will you tell me where managers go wrong, and what's one thing that one trait that is common among good managers, perhaps a couple of traits that are common among bad leaders from a coach's perspective?
Yeah, I mean, it comes back to what I mentioned earlier. You first have to understand the difference between management and leadership. They're not opposites. Most managers learn how to be good leaders. Most leaders do some managing, but managing is about the efficient deployment of resources, whether that's, people or money or time or goods of some sort. So efficiently managing things, organizing things, being clear in direction and understanding, that tasks need to be delegated. And so a good manager is somebody who can efficiently deploy an organization, like a football coach calling in plays from the sideline, or a quarterback in the huddle saying, okay, you're going to go on the left side and go all the way down, and you're going to go button hook on the right. And so just make sure everybody knows what they're supposed to do. And that's management. Leadership is a quality of making people want to follow you, inspiring and motivating people, so that when you tell them what to do as a manager, when you give them their assignments, they're doing it with enthusiasm, they're doing that with passion, they're doing that willingly. And so lots of people get trained through observation, through on-the-job training, sometimes through some specific learning on how to manage the job, whatever it is they're doing. Fewer people get trained on how to be leaders and understand that that is also a learned skill. Like anything else, singing is a great example. Some people just naturally sing well, and some people naturally don't sing well. You can ask me later which one of those two categories I think I'm in. But anyone who's studied it and done it will tell you that you need to train your voice. If you're a naturally good singer, you still need voice training if you're going to be a professional singer, if you're going to do it seriously. If you're a naturally bad singer, you can get better by going through training. So leadership is one of those things. Some people naturally are good at it, some people naturally aren't, but everybody who's in a leadership position or wants to be in a leadership position should be trained, should get training, should volunteer for training, seek out training, and by their bosses assigned training in leadership.
I agree with that. I think in my experience, if I'm being managed or led by someone, I want to trust them. And I think that that's a big part of what people don't realize about leadership is you have to get people to trust you if you want them to follow you, if you want to inspire them, if you want them to look up to you. And I want to talk a little bit about a couple of workshops that Valor Advisors offers. And I know one of them is a trust workshop. I want to ask you what do people, gain from obtaining a trust workshop, and what kind of logistically, what does that look like?
Yeah, the several members of the Valor Advisors team are certified as facilitators, instructors of an organization called the Trust Edge Institute. And the philosophy behind the Trust Edge Institute started by a brilliant guy by the name of David Horsacker. And David's point, now a worldwide sort of movement, is understanding that trust underpins a great many successes, and a lack of trust underpins a great number of problems within organizations. Do your customers trust you? Do your employees trust you? Do your bosses trust you? Trust is essential in business. And how do we identify whether we have high or low trust? And how do we develop higher trust? And so through the Trust Edge Institute, we provide workshops to help you first understand the level of trust in the organization, and second, to develop higher trust, to become a high trust organization, to make trust part of the culture of your organization. And so we see great success with that. It's an incredible set of programs that several of the members of the Valor Advisors team have been trained as facilitators to provide. Great content coming from those guys.
Next up, I want to ask you a little bit about another workshop called Navigational Conversations. And you and I have talked about this workshop off the air, but I was hoping that you could walk our listeners through what is Navigational Conversations and what can teams and leaders hope to gain by obtaining that.
Yeah, NavC, as we call it, is one of my favorite workshops. It's a 2-day workshop, and it's designed for managers, people in management positions and leadership positions, to teach them how to be coaches and how to use coaching techniques to be better managers and better leaders. I mentioned at the start of this episode that there was a difference and that people needed to understand between managing and leading and between managing and coaching. I talked last episode about the difference between coaching and consulting, where consultants get paid to give answers and coaches get paid to ask questions. And the reason that you want to coach someone, if you can, is you draw out of them that which is important to them. You draw out of them the responsibility for getting stuff done. They own the goals and they own the path to get to those goals. So what we do in Navigational Conversations, it's a 2-day workshop. Myself and several other members of the Valor Advisors team are certified facilitators of that workshop. It comes from a company called Leadscape Learning. And it's this fabulous program. As I said, it's 2 days. Typically get a room full of managers at the same company. And we work for a couple of days on what is coaching. And how is that different than directing, telling people what to do? And what is the power of getting them to identify their own state, current state, their own goals, and their own path for getting there? In fact, the name Navigational Conversations comes from that concept of identifying your point A, identifying your aspirational point B, and then identifying the path that gets you from point A to point B. And that's something that people can be trained to do. And we see great success in just a 2-day workshop of people learning how to be coaches, which is different than being a manager who tells people what to do. If you can sit down with an employee or a group, but it's really powerful at the one-on-one, sit down with your employees and get them to tell you what they want out of their future, where they think a better future state is, and how they think they can get there. They own that goal, they own that path, and the results are really incredible.
That's awesome. So with just a couple minutes left here today, what's something that someone listening can do today to enhance their leadership qualities? Is there a different kind of mindset shift that they could start practicing? Is there a habit that they could start making today in order to get their team to trust them more, in order to understand where they are and where they want to end up?
Well, you touched on a couple of things there. So there are certain traits that all good leaders share. And so finding out what those traits are and deciding this week I'm going to practice this one, this month I'm going to practice this one, whatever it might be. Being aware of trying to develop a practice of showing some of the traits of good leadership is one answer. You also mentioned trust. Identifying levels of trust and rebuilding or improving trust is also an important set of an exercise to go through. How do I build more trust between me and those that I want to lead? The end of the day, leadership, and I got a chance to study leadership under some of the greatest leaders in the world, Marine generals and CEOs and folks that are just the top of their game. And I had an opportunity to work for a general many years ago who really made it his life's work to study leadership. And General Tom Jones looked at folks who had a dictatorial style versus folks who had a more democratic style, folks who were loud versus folks who were quiet, folks who always seemed to know what they were doing versus folks who took their time and really made deliberate decisions. And the conclusion was that you can be a great leader with almost any style, with almost any personality type. And that being a great leader boils down in the general's work to two things. Being able to show your people, the people that you're leading, being able to show them that you have a genuine regard and passion for the mission, the thing that we're trying to do, I care a lot about. And also, the second thing is to be able to demonstrate that you have a genuine regard for them as people. And if you can demonstrate a genuine passion for the mission and a genuine regard for them, you care for them as people, people will follow you. And that really makes it simple for people. It's the thing that we're trying to do I care? Because if I don't care, it bleeds through in everything I say and do. And it's almost impossible to lead somebody to a mission you don't care about. But it's equally difficult or more difficult to lead people who get the sense that you don't really care about them.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. And we're almost at the end of our time, but I want to do another lightning round because we had so much
Uh-oh.
fun with that last time. Um, all right, are you ready?
I'm always ready.
All right. If you could pick a superpower, what would it be?
If I could pick a superpower, what would it be? It would be the ability to, through mind control or some magical hand gesture, be able to get people to resolve conflicts.
That's good. Um, I would probably pick invisibility. All right. Are you a phone call guy or an email guy?
I absolutely love interacting with people. My disc profile tells me that I have high I tendencies, which means that I like to be friends with everybody I talk to, and that's harder in an email. Although I attempt to pull that off as much as I can, but I probably would prefer to be able to talk to somebody over the phone at least, if not on a video call or some in person like this.
Amazing. In a game of truth or dare, what are you picking?
I did not expect that question. I'm a big believer in the truth. The truth will set you free. At the same time, I love seeing what people come up with as their dares, and so sometimes I pick dare just to see what crazy stuff people are going to try to get you to do.
All right, and you spoke earlier about your ability or lack thereof to sing, but let's say you're on the American Idol stage right now. Which song are you singing?
I mentioned that some people have a naturally good singing voice and some people don't. And I think that I don't have a naturally good singing voice. But I have done karaoke once in my life. And I picked a Bruce Springsteen song because his register is pretty similar to mine. And I feel like um, I I did it as much justice as I could. So that's probably where I'd go again, is something like Thunder Road or one of those classic Springsteen middle register songs.
That's awesome. Did you watch the Bruce Springsteen movie with Jeremy White?
I did. I did. It's a really interesting movie because it picks just a tiny little slice of his career when he was having a bit of a existential crisis to create
Yeah,
one of my favorite Springsteen albums, Nebraska. So
it's a good one.
it was a good movie.
Yeah, gotta love Asbury Park. It's a fun little town in Jersey. All right, that is all of my lightning round questions for today, but I am so excited for our next episode. Thanks again for taking the time today.
You got it, Bralin. It was a pleasure.
All right, I want to hit stop.